There we go. Hi, everybody. I'm Rod JANZ with FuelRadio, and joining me today is Carmen Dunn. Hi, Carmen.
Hi.
Carmen is a nutritionist, and what's your official title? What are some of the degrees that you have? By way of introduction, we're going to do this a little bit differently. So you go ahead and introduce yourself a little bit. And I just noticed that you have a great video, and I'm gonna play that because I think it says a lot about who you are and what you do. So yeah, what are some of the letters behind your name mean?
Yeah, it gets confusing. The main certification is CNP, so Certified Nutritional Practitioner. And then I did additional training in functional nutrition. So that's referred to as FDN, a practitioner of functional diagnostic nutrition. In layman's terms, we're known as holistic nutritionists that work alongside naturopathic doctors.
Okay, nice. I like all of those designations. Those sound interesting. So here we go with the video. And there we go.
The women that come to me, they're smart, strong, success-driven women, but their ambition and perfectionism for their work has driven.
Uh-oh.
That they can't sleep or that they're putting on weight to the fact
Do you hear that?
Something is going wrong in the body. When women first come to me, they're frustrated, they're on the verge of giving up, and they're skeptical because they've tried so many things and nothing has worked. What's happening is their body is going through dysfunction, and that's what I work with, and dysfunction always precedes disease. I used to work in the corporate world, and back then I went through a pretty severe burnout, and it got to the point where it was so severe that I decided I had to leave my job. And when I started thinking about what is it that I truly love in life, the only thing that came up was I'd always really been passionate for natural health. This led me to go back to school to study nutrition, and it was there when I really started understanding the physiology behind burnout, so that I finally understood why I was feeling that way. And so whether a woman is working in the corporate world or she's running her own business that she loves, these are the things that are going to come up, and I really want to serve these women so that they don't get to the place where I was. The first thing I do when I work with a client is I run functional labs on them so I can find out exactly where these issues are coming from. And then I take that information and build a plan that's personalized to them and their lifestyle so I can get them feeling amazing again. What my clients are looking for is, it's pretty simple. They don't want to be tired anymore throughout the day. You know, they want to have energy to help their kids with their homework, go out, to networking events in the evening. They want to be able to eat food with confidence that they're not going to bloat up or have, some gut-wrenching pain. They want to feel better in their clothes, and the way that they want to feel is not only realistic, but attainable. When I think back to where I used to be, I wasted so many of my precious years just suffering. I used to tell myself this was normal and there was nothing I could do about it. And so my vision is really to show women that it doesn't have to be this way. I don't think most women know how good they're meant to feel.
Wow, where do I sign up? It's been a while since I've seen that.
It's good. It's really good. I think it explains your approach and your target market. Obviously, I think you're still working with or wanting to work with successful women. I'm sure you're open to more than that, but that's probably still your target market, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I have a question from that because I've thought, I know that I told you in our pre-interview chat that I tried raw vegan. I'm like on day 62 or something like that.
Oh, wow.
And, but it's a lot of work. And so how do you work with busy entrepreneurial or corporate people, successful people? Like, how do you help them find the time to eat nutritious meals and snacks and so forth?
Well, I think there's a bunch of different techniques depending on the person and their lifestyle challenges. I'm not a chef myself, and I'm very upfront. I don't particularly love cooking. I did not come from a family that loved to cook. Cooking for us was always a chore. It was what the hell are we going to cook tonight? So the strategy that I give to my clients is really simple. Like, I have a really simple matrix that I use so that when they open up the fridge, they're like, okay, I need this, this, and this, and they're done. So a lot of the meals that I help them cook are 5 to 10 minutes max. I have had in some instances clients where their jobs really did not permit them to have the time to cook, like they were in the film industry or something. So, you know, in those cases, then I help them. There's a lot of really good meal delivery services. And then I would work with the company and design the food plan that they needed, and then we'd get it delivered to them. So there's lots of different techniques. Sometimes fasting is a way that helps a woman cut from 3 meals down to 2 meals. If we get her fasting through the morning, then she doesn't have to worry about breakfast. And then she can just focus on 2 meals a day. So it really depends on the person, their needs, their unique lifestyle challenges. And then I try to build something that is realistic to them, because I'm not going to match a therapy or a tool to them if it's not realistic, and I know they're not going to follow it. So, but yeah, simplicity, simple little matrix. I'm not doing complicated meals myself, and I'm healthy. So if I can do it, anyone can do it.
Yeah, excellent. So it sounds like you're setting people up for success instead of
Hopefully.
failure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if it's too complicated and takes too much time, people are going to give up pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like what you said about the organized fridge. I mean, if you could see my fridge right now, it's absolute chaos. And it doesn't take very long to get that way.
I know. You're just looking for space.
Yeah, we'll have to talk some more. I also really like your noodle maker.
The zoodles are awesome. And it was my oldest child was eating them. Now he's through a phase where he won't eat them. But yeah, I love zoodles.
Yeah.
When we get their zucchini are now in season, so I pick them up at the farmer's market on every week now. But
yeah, great. Well, you're probably the third or fourth nutritionist I've spoken with, and I love talking to people like you who have this background, because in the diet industry, it's just been my observation. And I'm not saying you're in that industry. You're helping people get healthy. You're focusing in on nutrition, but typically I think what a lot of people are told or sold is kind of that one size fits all. And what I like about people who are nutritionists is like it showed in your video, how you personalize each thing for people. Maybe you could just say a bit more about that. Like, tell us about your approach to nutrition and personalization.
Yeah, that whole one size fits all model, that's what pushed me to go and seek further training in functional nutrition, because it doesn't work. And I tried it when I first graduated, and I tried it with my clients, and it didn't work. You know, and just because a food is deemed healthy doesn't mean it's healthful for one person. So, you know, we're told all the time, like, oh, beans are really healthy, you know, kidney beans, black beans. I love the taste of beans, but they were actually one of the worst foods for me. And I can explain later why, but
I noticed you posted lately that you wanted to give beans a try and it just wasn't working for you.
Oh, chickpeas. Yeah.
Yeah,
I was
chickpeas,
like, what's the point of this? All the bloating and pain. And oh no, it was the fatigue that hit me the entire afternoon. So I lost 4 hours of work, right? Of productivity. So your question, okay, so how do I get away from one size fits all? Is I run labs on clients, and I let the lab work dictate which plan we're going to go towards. Because everybody's a unique individual. We all have different biochemical individualities. And now, I don't know if you saw, I just soft launched my genetic consultation. So now I can take the results of people's genetic tests, like, you know, when you go through 23andMe or Ancestry.com, and from those genes, I can now see which diet would be optimal. Like, I can see which people could thrive on a vegan diet, or which people, no, they need to add meat back in. So it lets me see certain nutrients. So, you know, that's another thing that I'm happy to add into my practice, because now I can get even more precise about someone's optimal diet. And now we're looking at their genetic background too, which is that missing P, which I wasn't able to do before. That's super fascinating.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, what I heard you say is, just because a food is deemed healthy doesn't mean that it works for everyone. We had dinner with some friends on the weekend, and he's had some heart issues, and you know, she said, you're like by me doing the raw vegan diet, I was actually able to lower my cholesterol numbers and stuff like that, and get my the ones that's supposed to go up, and the ones supposed to go down, they go down. And she actually said, you're fortunate, because she said that doesn't work for her husband. So it was just reiterating what I think this is kind of new for me. So, and here you are saying it again, that yeah, one size doesn't fit all, and not every food is necessarily, it could be healthy, but doesn't work for everyone. Right?
Exactly. And that's one of the genes I can test in, is I can actually see if someone genetically produces less HDL cholesterol than others, in which case their high cholesterol is genetic. So I think if that is someone's case, it kind of removes a bit of that guilt off them. Like, okay, it's not because I was being lazy or not working out. There's something working against me. But the part of this that I like is it's a field known as epigenetics, where you can change the way a gene expresses itself through diet or diet and lifestyle. So we can kind of turn bad genes off and good genes on. So when we start applying nutrition into it, it's known as nutrigenomics. So if someone had that, what we call a SNP or a polymorphism on their gene, we can actually turn it off, and I can kind of hack it in a way to help them through it. So yeah, no, it's really, really powerful stuff.
Epigenetics, that's pretty cool. How did you come across that? Because I think it is something that's become more and more popular lately, isn't it?
Yeah, I was very fortunate. It was almost like an apprenticeship, if you will. I've been studying for just over 3 years now, under various doctors across Canada and US, who are kind of like the top leaders in this field. And so I've been training with them, and it's mind-blowing, some of the results we're seeing. Like, one of the doctors I train with is in Toronto. She's a naturopathic physician there, and she's written multiple books on weight loss. And she says now she doesn't even use her books with her patients. She just looks at their genetics and then boom, can fix things. So, and one of the doctors I worked with in the States, I think he's in Ohio or something, fascinating stuff he was telling me about fertility. There's a field called conscious conception. And if you're able to change your diet and lifestyle 6 months pre-conception, you can turn off some of those bad genes that someone may have, so the offspring doesn't inherit them. So say you were genetically predisposed towards obesity, you could actually make it so your offspring doesn't inherit that, all through cleaning up your diet, your lifestyle, on both the man and the woman side. So it's just fascinating. So there's so much we can do in that 6 months time before we try to make a baby. So I'm loving it so far. I mean, it's a very complicated area, but the implications in a clinical sense are really, really powerful.
I bet it's really helpful for people, and I'm sure you meet them all the time, who've tried all kinds of things, and they're like, nothing works for me. But you can look at it and be really specific and say, okay, this is probably what it is. Let's give this a try. Yeah,
like I'll give you an example on me that kind of blew my mind. Is like, I'm a very tall and like slim person, but for 20 years, almost 20 years, I was on a very clean vegetarian diet. Everything was organic, non-GMO. I was very cognizant about that. But if I'm being honest, I felt like I looked like I had the body of someone that ate McDonald's every day. And I didn't understand why. And I felt a lot of guilt, because I'm like, if I'm a nutritionist and I don't feel comfortable in a bikini on a beach, there's something wrong. But I'm like, I don't get it. Yes, I'm not working out in a gym 7 days a week, but I shouldn't have as much, adipose tissue, fat around the belly as I did. And so when I did my test, I found out that I genetically produce more insulin in response to carbohydrates than the average person. So what that means is my body doesn't really differentiate between yams or chocolate. It's going to overproduce insulin, which is going to make more fat, specifically on the belly. So what that tells me is that the vegetarian diet was a terrible diet for me, because it was so rich in carbs. So when I switched it, boom, the weight came off. So, that's a really poignant thing to learn because it explains so much that I didn't understand for so many years prior.
So what does your nutrition look like now? Like you're married and you have a couple kids, so you have children, you have yourself, and you have your husband, probably all with very, very different needs. How do you balance that?
One thing that really helped me, and I didn't know this going into it, was when I was about to give birth to my second child, I was trying to delegate as much as I could so that, you know, in the first month after I had the baby, I'd have more support. And so I ended up joining Spud and doing the home grocery delivery. And in it, they have what's called a recurring order. So you save certain foods and then you get shipped the same foods next week, and you can always go and add or delete. And what it ended up doing for me is it made me more cognizant about, okay, I need to have these 7 proteins for dinners for the week. Make sure I have, you know, 2 vegetables per meal. And it ended up organizing everything. So everything was done. So I knew that every day when I'd have to cook, I'd have my protein, I'd have a diverse range of vegetables. I just kind of like organized it, and it's worked really, really well. And it's simple. And I've got like cheat sheets in my cupboards that I use with my clients so that they can just like tape it up in the cupboards in the kitchen. So if they're like, I've got chicken thighs, but I don't know how to cook it, boom, they open up, look at it, they see a simple recipe. And so so that's really helped me on an organizational, because by nature, I'm not a good person when it comes to plans. So yeah, I don't know if that makes sense, but I really just made sure I had, you know, the proper macros I needed. I had everything so that I could survive for a week. Mm-hmm. So I guess it was like organization, really.
Yeah. Interesting. We talked about this earlier already, but working with success-driven women, I'm wondering, and I mean, you're probably in your own demographic. You have 2 kids, you have your own business. I would imagine your husband's working, so very, very busy. And stress affects the body as well. I'm just wondering if you could maybe talk about some of the challenges that busy people have when it comes to their nutrition and how you help people with those.
Like how I help them de-stress, or like
no, what are the challenges that success-driven women have, the women that are in your demographic, and how do you help them?
So there's a few different ways. I think I wrote this last night, actually. When I start working with a woman and I ask her, like, everyone will say, oh yeah, I'm stressed out, but I'll say, okay, well, on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being high, where would you rate yourself? And I noticed that a lot of women would say, oh, I don't know, about a 2 to 3, but they're really a 6 or 7. Yeah. And what happens is when stress becomes normal for you and it becomes chronic, you don't realize when you're stressed out anymore. So I think awareness to when you're in a stressed state is really important. So the first thing I help them is to identifying what it feels like when they're stressed out. I know that may sound like, of course someone knows when they're stressed, but a lot of times people don't. They just think this is normal. And I have different techniques that I use dependent on, like, I've got techniques that I use with them in the moment when they're stressed out and they need to lower the cortisol levels, right? So there's there's a breathing technique that I use. There's other techniques that pull someone out of their head back into their body so they can lower the stress hormones. Because if those stress hormones stay high, well, they're going to be irritated, frustrated, stressed out. They're not going to think properly. Stress kills the dendrites in your brain. It kills brain cells, which is why you start having issues with memory and you can't remember things. So there's that. And then I've got tools to help them ongoing basis reduce the stress. Like, one is going for a walk in the evening. Walking lowers cortisol. And so for a lot of women, they struggle with sleep latency, which is the time it takes to fall asleep in bed. So it's very common for a woman to, go to bed, and she may go to bed at a good time. Like, she's very cognizant of that, but she's lying there staring up at the ceiling for 2 hours and she can't fall asleep. So she gets in her head and then goes through this chain of anxious thoughts, worrisome thoughts. So when that's happening, it's usually because there's been a spike in cortisol. So I have to analyze, well, what is triggering this in your lifestyle? Is it because you're eating something for dinner that you're sensitive to? Because if you are, that'll spike cortisol. Are you engaging in any type of activity that would increase your nighttime stress? Like, are you going to the gym? Are you having arguments that are stressing you out? Are you working? Are you doing any type of strenuous like work on your house? So we have to identify those things and make them aware of it, and then find ways for them to calm down in the evening so we can get that stress down. So, I mean, it could be anything from reading a book. It could be, you know, taking, you know, the classic bubble bath, walking in the evening. Now there's a lot of really good apps that a person could get. There's one called binaural beats, which is kind of along the realm of meditation, but it's like these sounds that you listen to that change the waves in the brain to calm a person down in the moment. So there's lots of different, you know, tools that I can use to address a woman's stress. But we have to start with the awareness of what it looks like. And also the awareness of how that stressor is creating the health issues, because they may not relate the fact that they're getting more colds than normal throughout the year. They're getting the flu every year. And instead of a cold lasting, you know, 5 days, it's now going on 2 to 3 weeks. So when we can help them make the links, then that also motivates them to want to make changes in their lifestyle to help them become what I call stress resilient.
Excellent.
Yeah.
On your website, I'm just going to put my glasses on so I can read this. You mention energy, sleep. We've just talked about a little bit, weight loss and digestion. I was wondering if there's a key strategy, like just to really boil it down, if there's a key strategy that can help with all 4 things.
Yeah. So one of the things so food sensitivities would be one, because if you're eating something of which you're sensitive to, that's going to increase inflammation. That's going to increase your cortisol. So that's going to increase your stress. That will also put on weight, specifically around the belly. It's going to lead to sleep issues, and it's obviously going to lead to fatigue. So identifying those trigger foods, eliminating them, and then working on healing the gut is one way. Another really simple thing I do is teaching women how to eat, to create their meals so that it balances their blood sugar. Because when your blood sugar is balanced throughout the day, you're going to feel more calm. You're going to be more relaxed. You're going to be able to handle stressors, because rather than go into reactive mode, you can go into problem solving mode. I was going to ask you when you're talking earlier if there's a nutritional way to handle stress. So that sounds like one of the ways is to balance your blood sugar. Blood sugar, yeah. There's certain nutrients as well, which are known for helping calm the person down. So there's a bunch of things. Yeah. Okay. So I interrupted you. Were you going to continue on with that? Or were you going somewhere with that? Sorry about that. Okay. Yeah. What about like low energy? Is that just a function of carbohydrates as well, and insulin levels and stuff like that? Or like I think a lot of people, and it must be really frustrating because, you know, if you, I'll just speak personally, fatigued in the afternoon, and then, you know, waking up at night, and it's like, oh my goodness, it's like you can't win, you know? So, do you have any ways to help people avoid that lull in the afternoon? Yeah, so there's a lot. So I will state that it is normal that around 3 p.m. we will naturally start to feel a little less energetic, and that just has to do with our circadian rhythm. Sure, I've read that somewhere. Yeah, it's quite natural. Yeah. But if you're tired at 10 a.m., it takes you 2 hours to get going in the morning. You crash at 1 to 2 p.m., then something's up. I mean, it's normal to be tired at 7 p.m. after work. You've physically and mentally exhausted yourself, but it's not throughout the day. So I have lots of little tips and tricks. Like there's at least 12 to 15 things that come to mind, which are causes for low energy, right? Okay. Yeah. So you kind of touched on one of them, which is a disrupted circadian rhythm. So our sleep wake balance is completely off in the modern world.
Mm-hmm.
We were designed to be outdoors all day in the sunlight, because there's specific, the spectrum of color, the blue light and the green light is what wakes us up. So when we're outside and we're exposed to sunlight, we get on a sunny day around 100,000 lux, which contributes to a lot of energy. But then if you look at, and I should continue. So we get all of the good energetic energy from the sunlight. And then when the sun goes down and there's a sunset, the orange hues, the red hues, the yellow from the sun are what trigger melatonin to rise up to help us fall asleep.
Interesting.
So you may have noticed that if you've gone camping, you probably get up earlier in the morning and you go to bed earlier.
Yeah.
And it's because you're living in nature with how our bodies were designed. But you look at the modern way of life, especially with all of us working from home now, we live indoors and we're exposed to, artificial lighting. We're not getting the sunlight. So we spend our days tired, drinking coffee. And then in the evening, we are consuming electronics. So we're in front of the TV, iPad, cell phone, and we're getting all that blue light, and that stimulates us. So we wonder why we're tired throughout the day and then suddenly we're stimulated in the evening and can't fall asleep. It's because we're no longer living in rhythm with the nature. So, that's a huge issue. That was one of my big issues when I had to work through my own exhaustion.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So there really is something called vitamin N. That's important.
Vitamin nature.
Yeah, vitamin nature. Yeah.
Yeah.
It really does just feel so much better. There's something to it, right? When you're outside first thing in the morning and then watching a sunset, it's about more than just the beauty of it, I guess. It's actually, there's some light energy stuff going on.
Oh yeah. And there's a lot of evidence to support it. It's a field known as chronobiology. So
yeah.
Sometimes the simplest answers are in nature. We don't need these complicated technological things to heal us, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You've alluded to it a couple of times. So, and that's your own story. So how did light and nature play a role in your own story? And just tell us about your own nutritional journey.
Oh, well, I have a lot, but basically nutrition is my second career. My first career was in business, particularly in marketing. So I went to business school and I went through a pretty severe burnout that I didn't want to admit because of shame and my ego was trying to protect me. But I was dealing with chronic exhaustion throughout the day where at any point during the day I could have curled up and gone to sleep. I was starting to have sleep issues where, like I was describing, I couldn't fall asleep at night and I would just trigger a stream of negative thoughts about myself. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I should do this. I should be able to handle this load of work. I was gaining weight. My acne was coming back. I couldn't think properly and I just felt like crap. And, I'd see the doctors and they're like, well, I can give you sleeping medications. I can put you on antidepressants. And I'm like, but I'm not depressed. I think it's normal. I feel this way, but no one could ever really give me answers or proper solutions aside from drugs just to mask the pain. But it got to a point where I started having these electrical shocks come out of the back of my head. And I freaked out thinking, oh my God, I have a brain tumor now. And so I ended up in the emergency and they're like, oh no, just go see a chiro. So I ended up seeing an osteopath. And I remember lying on the table and the woman was palpating my stomach and she just looked up at me and she was like, how much stress are you under? And in that second, I just broke down into tears. And I cannot do her justice for what she said, but what I remember was that I was under so much stress that it had impacted my organs, like they had rearranged or something. I don't remember what it was specifically, but it was something to do with my liver, but she could tell that I was under extreme amount of stress. Mm-hmm. And because I was probably at year 3 of my burnout at this point and not wanting to admit it. And I'd been told by, a counselor I was seeing, you need to go on sick leave. You need to go on sick leave. But I kept denying it. No, what will people think of me? All my reputation in the industry. when that osteopath told me that, I kind of fell into survival mode. And when you're in survival mode, you don't give a crap what people think about you. And so long story short, I went on sick leave. And that led me to quit I ended up working with some life coaches and career counselors to really look at all aspects from a holistic point of view of what was going on. I decided to leave my career at that point. And I was living in Montreal at the time, and I moved back to Vancouver, went to nutrition school. And it was only once I was in school here that I really learned about the root cause of what I was going through. And then everything just kind of made sense. And I was like, this is it. This is what I was meant to do. I want to specialize in this area because I know women are not getting support in this area. They're just being told, well, it's normal. Everyone's tired. Here's antidepressants. Here's sleeping medication, anti-anxiety medication. I wanted more than that. So basically, like where I am today in my practice is the years it's taken me of studying this, guinea pigging on myself, guinea pigging on, correcting my own issues to really get to the point where I'm like, okay, now I know how to do this for women. So kind of the silver lining of the burnout that I went through, but like, I understand how vulnerable it can be for a woman and how embarrassing. There's a lot of shame around it. But it's important that people really understand at a root cause what's happening in terms of your hormones, your low morning cortisol, your circadian rhythm is disrupted. There's certain nutrient deficiencies, there's inflammation, gut issues, mitochondrial dysfunction, right? So there's a lot of different things, and I could make it sound really complicated, but the long story is that I've really looked at all the individual pieces that contribute to exhaustion and stress and sleep issues, and I found a way to help women through that.
Excellent. Just say a bit about testing that you do. We've talked about it a little bit already, but maybe you could just expand on that. What sort of tests do you do? Because you just mentioned it. It can get really complicated, but I would imagine you do the tests and boil it down and for people, and then you don't go to them with these complicated solutions or maybe even too in-depth of an explanation, but just, you probably boil it down for people. So if you wouldn't mind just expanding a little. And you were rated as one of the top nutritional testers or something in Canada, weren't you?
I don't know if I was the top, but I remember one of the scientists at a lab that I was using in Toronto told me that I basically send the most amount of, I don't know if I was number one, but I send a lot of tests to them. And so when they do marketing, like, should we bring on this test or do they need support? They actually call me as a soundboard just because they know I use a lot.
That's probably great for some people. Like I'm sure some people are quite analytical and probably really appreciate that, right? Like I'm kind of like, just give me the bottom line, tell me what to do. Yeah. Although I am fascinated by the numbers as well, but I'm sure I know there's people more so than me that like to see the numbers.
Yeah, because it dictates how, what's the word? It really dictates how seriously a person's going to take what I say. If I just say, oh, you should try, eliminating wheat or dairy, it sounds too generic. But if they actually see a test from a lab that says, yeah, you are overreacting to dairy, like your number is 112 and it should be 20, then that sends the signal that a person really needs to be like, okay, I need to take this seriously. So you are right. A lot of people are more intuitive. They're like, yeah, I feel this isn't good for me. But a lot of the people I work with are a bit more left brain. They're, high intensity, or they're more science oriented. So when I can provide that, they're more willing to take my recommendations. So in terms of the test, so I use a lot of food sensitivity because I'm able to hit a lot of different health issues with that. I do saliva hormone.
And how do you do that? How do you do the food sensitivity? Like, do you have people try certain foods and then you test them somehow, or how is that done?
So it's pretty simple. So we basically just use what's called a little finger prick. Actually, I think the correct term is auto lancet or something, but it's basically what a person with diabetes would use to test their blood sugar. And then we're just collecting a few drops of blood into a little tube, and then that gets sent to the lab, and then they can analyze over 200 foods. So it'll tell me which foods in their current diet over the past 3 months are problems for them. And so there's different ranges, and I can go in and see. And I see patterns and stuff in people as well. So that's a big one that allows me to hit, gut issues, fatigue, sleep issues, weight. And then I use saliva hormone testing. So that's a spit test. You just spit into a tube. And with that, I can see a woman's sex hormones. So her estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. I can see her levels of melatonin and stress hormones. So I look at cortisol, DHEA, and then that gives me more insight into how she's responding to stress throughout the day. I can look into her menstrual cycle to see that, oh, wow, your progesterone's low because you're overstressed and it's eating up your progesterone right now. Because when someone's really stressed, it converts their progesterone into cortisol, but then that causes issues in a woman's menstrual cycle. So everything's related, right? Mm-hmm. And then the melatonin gives me insight into like gut issues they may be having and sleep issues, obviously. And then in terms of other tests, I was using a lot of stool tests, which sound really gross, but it's awesome because it tells me so much about what's going on. We can look for pathogenic bacteria or parasites that may be the cause of someone's gut issues. I can see what foods they're reacting to. I can see what strains of bacteria, like probiotics, they have. So that gives me a lot of insight if I'm working with someone more on the digestive area. I've done urine tests to look at certain toxins. And I'm considering bringing back a hair mineral test, which is you take a sample of your hair and then they can see which heavy metals or your nutrient status is. And it's funny because like medical practitioners may, poo-poo it, but they use it in the medical industry in doing autopsies. They will use it to see if someone's been poisoned with arsenic, for example. So it is used in the medical industry. And I recently had a case with someone where I suspected something was off with her and that there may be some heavy metal toxicity. So we ran it on her and it blew us away with what we found out. So I'm considering bringing that one back in for certain cases. So I can basically look at a lot of fluids throughout a person's body, but the food sensitivity and the hormones are the top ones I use.
That's excellent. I love measurement. I actually do love measurement. Yeah. I'm maybe a little more analytical than I
thought.
Well, not thought, but expressed there. Yeah. And because then you have a baseline, right? You know where people are at. You can tell if they've made improvement or not improved. And it's interesting that you didn't even mention weight, right? Like I'm sure you have people weigh themselves, but it's not just all about weight loss, is it? It's about all kinds of other things.
Yeah. And then I guess I should add, I now have the genetic test that I just launched last week. So that's allowing me to get even more precise on people's health.
Yeah, excellent. Do you want to mention, I mean, I love client stories. I'm not sure if I prepped you for this or not, but anonymously, of course, is there someone that you can talk about that, that maybe is a little kind of typical of the person that you see that you've been able to help and had a really good result or payoff for?
Yeah. So I'll give you an example of someone that I was able to help just even without the labs. So back in April, I think I ran a contest called the 10 by 10 Sleep Challenge, and the prize was a month of coaching with me for free. And so I had a woman win that. She was mid-30s, mom. She was on mat leave, had 2 kids, same spacing as mine almost. Our kids were almost born around the same. And she was experiencing a lot of fatigue. So she was having energy slumps around 1 to 2 p.m. She would have trouble finding words. She had a lot of brain fog, a lot of constipation. And she wasn't able to fall asleep. Like, it was taking her a while at night. And so because it was just like a really simple package, I just did some tweaking and some basic nutrition on her. And I mean, she actually started getting results within 2 to 3 business days. But when I followed up with her 2 weeks later, her mood was better. Her energy was through the roof, which was her words. She wasn't crashing at 1 to 2 p.m. anymore. Her mom noticed that she was happier and seemed to have like a jump in her step. She wasn't as irritable anymore with her kids or her husband. She had lost about 4 pounds within 2 weeks, which is pretty good. She didn't have the rumbly gut anymore. We increased, her bowel movements on average were 1 every 4 days. We got her to 1 every 2 days. She was able to fall asleep faster. She wasn't waking up through the night anymore. She felt more calm, cool, and collected. She wasn't arguing with her husband as much, and her sugar cravings were down. And that was just working with her. Like, I suspected some food sensitivities, and I'm like, okay, well, I don't know 100%. We're not going to run the test, but let's experiment here. I did some tweaking. I help her with her blood sugar throughout the day, and boom, like by day 2, it was almost immediately, because if you eat something bad, you'll feel bad immediately. And if you eat something great, you'll feel great. That's an example of how fast someone can really improve when they're willing to work on this. So
yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Another question that's just out of the blue, and that is, as a young mom, have you had to tweak your nutrition at all?
Yes. So I have just gone through my own journey of fat loss, trying to lose my baby weight. So previously, I had never had to lose more than 10 pounds. So this was really good for me to know what it's like on the client side.
Mm-hmm.
At the time when I was postpartum and like on that leave, I didn't realize certain things. Hindsight is always 20/20, but I had a lot of muscle wasting. I lost a lot of muscle through my pregnancies.
Okay.
And
is that just because you were less active and less, not exercising as much, or is it because of some other things?
I wasn't eating enough.
Oh, you weren't eating enough. Okay.
I was so stressed and overwhelmed with my first baby that I was lucky if I got breakfast in by 2 or 3 p.m.
Oh,
I was really, overwhelmed with my first son. So now when I look back, I'm like, that was obvious, Carmen. Like, I was barely probably getting in 1,000 calories a day. But at the time, I was just so jumbled and sleep deprivation. So yeah, I've had to work on my own protein levels, increase the amount that I eat. And recently with my genetic test, now I know that I need to switch around my macros. Like I burn fat better for fuel than carbs, and that's helped me lose more of the belly weight. Just because of my insulin response. So I've actually had the opportunity to guinea pig a lot on myself, which has been great. Yeah. So yeah, I've worked a lot. I mean, I always ate clean, but really playing around with those macros and stuff was really important for me, and making sure I was getting enough calories.
Interesting. Yeah. Maybe the next video will have to do with young moms or something.
Yeah.
You have a whole new demographic that you can reach out to now.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, no, postpartum nutrition is definitely something that needs to become a thing.
Yeah. Well, great, Carmen. This has been excellent. And I really appreciate you joining me today. Before we go, I'm just wondering if there's anything that you were hoping we were going to cover that I missed. Is there anything else you want to add to our discussion today?
No, just that if anyone's interested in the genetic consultation, I have a special on for the month of September.
Okay, great.
So it's normally $497, but I have it on for $197. So that would allow us, we basically go through 10 different categories of health. So we can explore your cardiovascular health. We can look at weight. We can look at fitness, mental health, which is really fun, like your ability to focus. So I have that on special. So I don't know allowed to say how to reach out to me, but
oh, absolutely. No, that's where I was going to go next. So I have your email open here. Well, go ahead. What's the best way to reach out to you for that? Is it your website at carmendunn.com?
Yeah, they can go there, or they can email me at info@carmendunn.com, DUN.
Okay.
And to follow me on Instagram, so at Carmen Dunn Nutrition. because I'm heavily promoting that right now for the month of September. So if someone's looking to get more precise answers towards their health, this would be a great place to start.
Excellent. And I'll just spell your name. It's CarmenDunn.com. And we'll have all of these things in our show notes as well. If you're listening today instead of watching the video or not at our website, you can go to our website at FuelRadio.com, and we'll have all of the links that Carmen mentioned. So yeah, thanks again. I've wanted to have this conversation with you for a long time, and it sounds like the timing was good. Like you took a tiny little bit of a hiatus to have have your second child, which is totally understandable, and you were just getting back at it. So yeah, I'm glad that this worked out and we were able to talk today.
Yeah, thanks so much for this. It's been fun.